When Jim Schwartz interviewed with the Ravens, it wasn't just another job conversation. It was a threat to Cleveland's entire blueprint. Baltimore offers more than a head coaching title. It's Schwartz's hometown, a chance to work with Lamar Jackson, and the kind of legacy-building opportunity few coordinators ever get. But for the Browns, it's a worst-case scenario. If Schwartz takes the job, Cleveland loses not just its top defensive mind but the anchor holding their coaching search, and Shedeur Sanders' development, together. Cleveland's insistence on keeping Schwartz isn't stubbornness, it's strategic desperation. No other candidate offers the same level of continuity and leadership. And without him, the Browns risk plunging back into mediocrity, with a rookie quarterback exposed to chaos and a defense struggling to regroup.
If you're into the real story and all the messy twists they don't show on highlight reels, go ahead and subscribe. And if you're sticking around to see how this Browns QB chaos plays out, you should definitely be subscribed.
Schwartz holds all the cards, and whatever hand he plays will ripple across the entire AFC. The NFL is spinning on its head this offseason, and the Browns, yes, the Cleveland Browns, have somehow become the most dramatic soap opera in the league. And no, it's not because of their quarterback situation or another unexpected playoff push. It's because of one man, Jim Schwartz. Not a head coach. Not a flashy hire. A defensive coordinator. A coordinator who, as of right now, has more influence than at least half of the current head coaches in the NFL. You can thank Cleveland for that. Or blame them. Depends on how this turns out. Let's be clear, Schwartz is no longer just calling plays. He's calling shots. The Browns have made it public knowledge that every head coaching candidate they're interviewing must agree to retain Jim Schwartz. That's not a suggestion. That's the condition. They're putting it right there in the job description. Want to coach the Cleveland Browns? Cool. You'll need Jim's blessing first. That alone is unprecedented. But it's not just happening in a vacuum, it's happening during one of the wildest coaching cycles we've seen in years. 9 teams. 9 head coaching vacancies. All hunting for the same pool of talent. All trying to reset their franchises. And here's Cleveland, telling every candidate to come in and share power with a defensive coordinator who has veto authority. Good luck with that. But here's the kicker. This is not about stubbornness or favoritism. This is about results. Schwartz didn't stumble into this power. He earned it. In one season he took an inconsistent, mistake-prone Cleveland defense and turned it into the 4th-ranked unit in the NFL. 4th. That's with injuries, offensive stagnation, and no reliable identity on the other side of the ball. He didn't just make the defense better, he made it the reason the Browns were even remotely competitive. And when you've been a franchise living in dysfunction for decades, someone who brings that kind of reliability, you don't let that go easily. But here's where things get complicated. Shedeur Sanders. The Browns drafted Sanders in the 5th round, and no one expected them to make him the face of the rebuild. But inside the building? That's exactly what they're preparing for. They believe in him. Not as a backup. Not as a placeholder. As a potential franchise quarterback. And if you're going to develop a young QB in the NFL, there's one thing you absolutely need. Structure. You need time. You need patience. You need the rest of the team to pull their weight while your rookie learns to carry his. And that's exactly what Schwartz gives you. A dominant defense is the most valuable thing you can give a young quarterback. Takes pressure off. It keeps games close. It allows mistakes without every interception turning into a loss. So now the Browns are stuck in a paradox. They need an offensive-minded head coach who can develop Shedeur Sanders. But that coach has to work alongside, not over, a defensive coordinator with institutional power. Not every coach is going to be okay with that. In fact, most aren't. Which means Cleveland is shopping for unicorns in a drought. And if that weren't enough, there's now a much bigger problem looming. Schwartz has interviewed with the Baltimore Ravens. Not for a lateral move. For the head coaching job. So let's break this down. Cleveland structured its entire offseason strategy around Jim Schwartz staying. They've told every candidate they want him on staff. They've made it part of the organizational pitch. But now, Schwartz could walk across the division line, take over a playoff contender, and leave Cleveland scrambling with no plan, no coach, and no defense. And if you think that won't send shockwaves through the locker room, think again. Players love Schwartz. They bought into his system. He turned Myles Garrett into a Defensive Player of the Year candidate. He made a rotating cast of cornerbacks look like a lockdown secondary. His approach is no nonsense and guys respect it. If he leaves, the buy-in resets. The culture resets. The Browns lose the one thing they could point to as elite. Meanwhile, in Baltimore, this is a dream scenario. You bring in a proven defensive mind with leadership experience, hometown ties, and the ability to immediately elevate what's already a dangerous unit. You pair him with Lamar Jackson, a team that's built to win now, and you let him take full control. No restrictions. No job sharing. Full autonomy. For Schwartz, it's legacy versus opportunity. Stay in Cleveland, and you're the stabilizer, the power behind the throne, helping develop a rookie QB and potentially build a new identity from the ground up. Walk into Baltimore and you get the top job, a Super Bowl window, and a team that can contend immediately. It's not hard to see the appeal on both sides. But for Cleveland, the risk is massive. Schwartz stays great. You can hire your offensive-minded head coach, structure the team around a dominant defense, and give Shedeur Sanders the rare luxury of time. If Schwartz leaves, everything falls apart. The head coach you were courting might not want the job anymore. The defense you relied on to carry a young quarterback? Gone. The plan? Back to square one. And it's not just Cleveland who's watching this. The Eagles are too. Let's not forget they had Schwartz. He helped them win their first Super Bowl. He built the defense that shut down some of the league's best offenses. And then they let him go. Quietly. No drama. No fanfare. Just a thank you and goodbye. Since then, Philly's defense has been up and down. Inconsistent. They haven't come close to replicating what Schwartz gave them. And now, from the outside looking in, they're watching him become the most important coach in two different franchises, without even needing a head coach title to do it. That's the part that stinks. Because while Schwartz is shaping entire organizations from a coordinator's seat, the Eagles are still trying to piece together their identity. And with every coaching search that slows down for his approval, with every power move he pulls in Cleveland or Baltimore, it becomes clearer what they gave up. Meanwhile, the Browns are now operating on borrowed time. The longer they wait, the fewer candidates are left. Teams aren't pausing their searches. They're locking in hires. And Cleveland? They're on hold, because one man hasn't made his decision yet. That's how much weight Schwartz carries. That's how much this hinges on him. And it raises the question no one wants to say out loud. If Schwartz holds this much power already, how long can you expect a head coach to work under him? Because even if he stays, even if Cleveland finds someone willing to accept the arrangement, how stable is that really? What happens when they disagree? What happens if the offense stalls and the defense shines? Who does the locker room listen to? Who actually runs the team? This is the power struggle that Cleveland built. And now they have to live with it. They believed in Jim Schwartz so much that they gave him the keys to the franchise, without ever giving him the title. And now another team might. So what happens next? If Schwartz stays, the Browns can try to thread the needle. They'll have to find the rare coaching candidate who's willing to develop a young quarterback while sharing authority. That's not easy, but it's possible. And if they get it right, they could build something real. Something sustainable. If he leaves, the Browns will have to start over. Again. New coach. New staff. New identity. And Shedeur Sanders? He goes from a patient, protected prospect to the face of a team in chaos. And Baltimore? They win twice. They get their guy, and they kneecap a division rival at the same time. This is more than a coaching hire. It's a defining moment. So drop your thoughts in the comments. Should Schwartz stay in Cleveland and finish what he started, or finally take the head job he's clearly earned in Baltimore? Like the video if you're keeping up with this offseason power struggle, and hit that subscribe button. Because this isn't just one coordinator's decision. It's the kind of move that rewrites the balance of an entire division. Let's break it down, because at this point, what's happening with Jim Schwartz isn't just a footnote to the offseason. It is the offseason. We've seen dramatic head coach firings, surprise retirements, wild quarterback trades. And still, none of it feels as consequential as what Jim Schwartz decides to do next. Because his choice is more than a personal career move. His decision will dictate the immediate future of two franchises. Two AFC North rivals. One trying to stabilize a historically unstable rebuild. The other poised to capitalize on one of the most consistent eras in football by maintaining their grip on the playoff elite. Let's start with the stakes in Cleveland. The Browns have already made a defining statement this offseason, and not through words but through actions. They've said loud and clear that Jim Schwartz is not just their defensive coordinator. He's the franchise cornerstone, the constant, the irreplaceable piece. They've prioritized him to the point of telling prospective head coaches, "You're not building your own staff. That part's already decided. Schwartz stays. Period." That's not something NFL teams typically do. It's the head coach who assembles the staff. That's the draw. That's the pitch. But in Cleveland, it's reversed. You want the job? You'll be working with Schwartz, not over him. That kind of setup shifts the balance of power in a way that creates massive friction, because not everyone wants to share influence, especially not with a coordinator who carries more credibility in the locker room than they do. And here's where the Browns have backed themselves into a corner. They've made it clear to Schwartz that he's essential, that his influence extends beyond the field, that they won't risk the progress he's brought defensively just to appease a new head coach. But now that Baltimore has entered the conversation, that entire premise is being tested. The Ravens aren't just sniffing around. They've already brought Schwartz in, interviewed him, looked at him as a serious option to replace John Harbaugh, should that door open. This isn't symbolic. This is strategic. Baltimore knows exactly what they're doing. If they offer Schwartz the head coaching role, it's a no-compromise package. Full control. Hometown return. MVP quarterback. A defense that's already playoff ready. And most importantly, a chance to finally shed the coordinator label and run a program on his own terms. That's something Cleveland can't offer. Not unless they blow everything up. And let's be honest, they're not going to do that. They've already committed to Schwartz as a coordinator. They've designed their structure around his continued presence in that role. Giving him the head coach job now would mean reversing their entire process. It would mean admitting that they should have made him the top guy from the jump, and that's not happening. Which means if Schwartz wants to be a head coach again, he'll have to do it somewhere else. Enter Baltimore. This is where the chess match turns ruthless. Because if Schwartz accepts a head coaching job with the Ravens, the fallout in Cleveland will be immediate and brutal. For starters, the Browns' coaching search implodes. Their current pitch is built around Schwartz. They've ruled out candidates who wouldn't work with him. They've locked themselves into a hiring strategy that assumes he's staying. If he walks now, that strategy is useless. They're left scrambling. The offense? Still unsettled. The defense? Now leaderless. The quarterback they want to develop? Now being brought into a total rebuild instead of a structured plan. And let's talk about Shedeur Sanders. He's the Browns' long-term bet. A fifth-rounder, yes, but internally viewed as a franchise guy. Someone they want to develop, not just stash. But that development plan relies on stability. On support. On a defense that can carry games so he doesn't have to win shootouts in year one. That defense? It's Schwartz's. If he leaves, the system leaves. The culture leaves. The identity leaves. And what's left is a rookie quarterback being pushed into a role without a parachute. We've seen this movie before and it never ends well. The Browns need Schwartz to stay. Not just for defense but for everything. The whole vision, every piece of it, starts with him. He is the blueprint. And that's what makes this so tense. Because he knows it. Jim Schwartz holds all the cards. He's got leverage most coordinators can only dream of. And he didn't demand it. He didn't threaten anyone. He earned it through performance. Through leadership. Through consistency. While the Browns' offense sputtered, Schwartz's defense dominated. While other staff members came and went, he built a unit that other teams feared. And now, with the Ravens interested, he can either continue being the architect of Cleveland's future, or leave and instantly become the leader of Baltimore's present. Either way, the decision doesn't just impact the Browns or the Ravens. It sends shockwaves through the AFC. Think about it. If Schwartz stays in Cleveland, the Browns can proceed with a coaching hire who fits their unusual power-sharing structure. They can move forward with a balanced team identity, elite defense, developing quarterback, and a locker room anchored by a respected leader. But if he leaves, that window slams shut. Suddenly, Cleveland becomes one of the least desirable jobs available. The defense is no longer elite. The quarterback is unproven. The front office just lost its centerpiece. And the team is forced to restart again, in a market where top coaching talent is already being scooped up by faster-moving franchises. And then there's Baltimore. If Schwartz heads home, the Ravens become even more dangerous. Their defense was already tough. Add Schwartz? You've got a top-tier mind leading a well-structured team, with playoff experience at quarterback and a franchise that doesn't panic. In that scenario, not only does Cleveland lose its most valuable staffer, they watch him walk into a division rival and instantly become a threat. It's a nightmare situation. And it's not hypothetical anymore. It's real. And while all of this is unfolding, the Eagles are somewhere in the background, watching it all, probably with a mix of disbelief and regret. Because they had Schwartz. He was their guy. He delivered their first Super Bowl. He anchored their defense when it mattered most. And when the dust settled, they let him go. Since then, Philadelphia has had some flashes. But never the same stability. Never the same culture. Never the same defense. And now, the coordinator, they quietly moved on from his dominating offseason headlines without even having a head coaching job. Yet. That's the full circle sting. So where does this leave us? With one man holding more sway than most head coaches in the league. With a rookie quarterback's future riding on a decision that isn't even his. With two franchises in limbo. With the Eagles watching what they lost. And with an entire fanbase waiting to see whether they get to move forward or spiral backward. Again. So here we are, staring down the final stretch of what's quietly become the most suspenseful storyline of the NFL offseason. Not some blockbuster trade, not a surprise retirement, but the future of Jim Schwartz. A defensive coordinator who, somehow, without holding a head coaching title, now controls the fates of Cleveland, Baltimore, and quite possibly the AFC playoff landscape. And the longer he stays quiet, the louder the tension gets. Every hour that passes without a decision is another hour the Browns sit paralyzed. They can't move. They won't move. They've invested everything into Schwartz being their anchor. He's not just part of the plan, he is the plan. And that's exactly what makes this so risky. Because what do you do when the guy you built your entire structure around might walk away? There is no clean way to pivot if Schwartz chooses Baltimore. Cleveland's defense, ranked 4th in the NFL under his guidance, isn't just built with his schemes. It's built for his schemes. You don't just bring in another DC and run it back. This isn't plug and play. The personalities, the alignments, the discipline, everything is a product of Schwartz's leadership. Without him, you don't have that same unit. And it's not just a drop in stats. It's a drop in identity. Which brings us back to Shedeur Sanders. The Browns need that defense. It's the only thing that gives them the breathing room to develop their young quarterback. Shedeur isn't coming in with the luxury of time. He's not a top 5 pick getting a team built around him from day one. He's a 5th rounder being asked to eventually take over a franchise that spent the last 20 years trying to find a single long-term starter. So no, the Browns can't afford to lose their elite defense. Because it's the only thing protecting Shedeur from becoming the next name on the endless list of almost quarterbacks who never had a chance. That's what makes Schwartz more than just a coach. He's Shedeur's insurance policy. And if that policy walks out the door, Shedeur goes from potential success story to sacrificial lamb. The expectations stay but the support system disappears. And that's how young quarterbacks get ruined. Not by lack of talent, but by being thrown into chaos with no cover, no continuity, and no room for mistakes. And again, this is all hanging on the word of one man. One phone call. One signature. That's how thin the Browns line is right now. Meanwhile, you've got Baltimore, steady, smart, waiting. The Ravens don't rush. They don't leak. They just calculate. And they've done the math on Schwartz. They know what he brings. And more importantly, they know what he takes away from Cleveland if he joins them. This isn't just about hiring a good coach. This is about destabilizing a division rival while strengthening your own infrastructure. This is about long-term dominance in a division where every edge matters. Give Schwartz a playoff defense, a top-tier quarterback, and a stable front office? You're not just competing. You're a contender. Immediately. And if you're Jim Schwartz, how do you say no to that? It's the title. The autonomy. The control. The shot at becoming the head coach without having to drag a team out of dysfunction. And the kicker? It's in your hometown. That's not just career advancement. That's legacy. Which brings us full circle, because in Cleveland they're still hoping legacy will matter more than title. They're hoping Schwartz sees value in what he's building. That he wants to finish what he started. That staying and helping turn Cleveland into a real contender means more than walking into a Super Bowl-ready roster and getting his name etched at the top of the org chart. But that's a gamble. And one the Browns have no control over. They've already placed all their chips on Schwartz staying. Their entire coaching search has been filtered through that assumption. They're not looking for a clean slate coach. They're not offering full control. They're offering a partnership. And those are rare in this league. So if Schwartz says no, that offer loses its value. The job becomes just another vacancy. The candidates they ruled out? Gone. The staff they assumed would return? Uncertain. And the one person holding everything together? Now leading your division rival. And what does that tell your players? That even when you finally got it right, you couldn't hold on to it. That the most respected coach in the building still saw more value elsewhere. That the direction of the team is once again up in the air. That's not just a coaching problem. That's a culture problem. Because leadership, real leadership, doesn't come around often. And when you lose someone like Schwartz, you don't just replace him with a new hire. You start over. Again. And again. And again. Which, if you're a Browns fan, is the most familiar story in the world. That's why this decision matters. Because Schwartz isn't just deciding where to work. He's deciding whether the Browns finally break their cycle, or repeat it. He's deciding whether Shedeur Sanders gets a real shot to succeed, or becomes another cautionary tale. He's deciding whether Cleveland can build around continuity, or collapse back into another rebuild. And that's what makes this so surreal. Because the franchise with the most on the line right now isn't one that fired their head coach. It's the one waiting for their coordinator to say yes or no. So what's it going to be? Will Schwartz choose legacy and loyalty in Cleveland, where his defense gave the team its first real identity in years? Or will he take the head coaching seat in Baltimore and finally step into the role everyone knows he's earned? Let us know what you think. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Like the video if you're living for this off-season drama, and hit subscribe. We'll be right here when the decision finally drops and the dominoes start to fall. Because this is more than just a coaching move. It's a turning point. And once it happens, nothing in the AFC North will look the same.